I don't know about you guys, but when I look at my Twitter timeline, it's full of people saying that the Bitcoin cycle top and the crypto cycle top is in. And it starts with small accounts, but it actually goes to some really big accounts. So I was now saying there's a 20 to 25% chance that the cycle's topped. You got Ansem who says it's actually a 75% chance that the cycle's topped. You got Cameron saying that just like that, the bull market is over, at least according to past history. I mean, a lot of people are talking about the cycle having topped already, and that maybe we've seen the end of the bull market, and now we have another crisis in the market. And this time, the crisis is that we have a big seller in the market. Who's the seller? It's the US government, and they've been given the green light by the courts to sell 69,000 Bitcoin, which is $6.5 billion worth of Bitcoin that they seized from Silk Road. And now a lot of people are actually asking whether this is actually possibly the end of the bull market. I'm going to show you why I think that not only is this not the end of the bull market, but I actually think that we're about to get a generational buying opportunity. Not yet. I think that if you look for one indicator, one thing's going to trigger, and that trigger is going to give you a generational buying opportunity in crypto. And I'm going to also show you why it's not the end of the bull market and why you can basically relax in your slacks. So if that sounds good to you, obliterate the like button, obliterate the like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's get the show on the road. Someone says generational is so overused. Run the clickbait, man. I love these things. Alex Becker got it wrong again. Someone says it's over. Come on, guys, smile. I'm going to show you why we're about to get a generational buying opportunity. I'm going to show you exactly what day you're going to get this generational buying opportunity. I'm going to show you exactly what's going to be triggered to give you this opportunity. I'm going to show you why I'm not worried that it's the end of the bull market. And then we're going to look at the facts around this Department of Justice actually selling their Bitcoin. Because initially, I must say, I thought this was like a parting gift from the Democrats who did this maliciously to overturn Trump's decision around the strategic reserve. But actually, you know what? It turns out it's not actually that. So today, I don't want to waste any more time with formalities. I just want you to subscribe to the channel, like the video. Let's get into the alpha because there's a lot to talk about today. I do see, as we speaking right now, 92,685. It's quite important that we close above this level over here. Like, I really want to close above 92,500, so we don't put in another lower low here, because that actually would put in a short-term bearish market structure. I think it's also interesting that as the market goes down and we get bad news, as the market goes down, we then get bad news into the market. And now, as I said to you, my whole timeline is like people talking about the fact that crypto is done, that there is a cycle top. And to be honest, I woke up this morning and I actually, for about a split second, I think it was just a bit more than a split second, actually maybe thought, could this actually be the cycle top? And I'll show you in a second why I'm not actually sure that it is a cycle top. But anyway, let's talk about today's crisis, because every day we get a crisis. So today's crisis, on the eve of a bank holiday in the States. Today is like a bank holiday in the States. I think it's because Carter passed away recently. That's right? It's because Jimmy Carter passed away. Anyway, so today's crisis is that the US government has been given the green light to sell 69,000 Bitcoin, which they originally seized from Silk Road. So that is what today's crisis actually is. And this is obviously the same the same 69,000 Bitcoin that Trump was planning on making a strategic reserve, right?
Look, nothing changes.
So let's just quickly, I'm gonna go back to it, and you can just quickly listen to when Trump.
If I am elected, it will be the policy of my administration, United States of America, to keep 100% of all the Bitcoin the U.S. government currently holds or acquires into the future. We'll keep 100%. I hope you do well, please.
So that was the strategic reserve that Trump said he's going to hold. He said he's going to hold 100% of all the Bitcoin that the US government are holding. And so I initially thought that this was like a goodbye gift from the Democrats. I thought that the Democrats were like doing one last thing for us to remind us what would happen if they were still in power. So I thought that
Hello.
This is
I wanna
like
talk
from
to you.
Kamala and the Democrats, a parting gift for us. But you know what? When you look at the facts, turns out it's actually not a parting gift. Turns out that this is actually not actually orchestrated by the Democrats. And in fact, it's actually been in the market for a long time, and everybody kind of knew that this was going to happen. Let's actually look at some of the facts. So here are the facts. The facts are that this news actually came out yesterday in crypto. So late last night in the United States, we got the news that the United States government has been given the green light to liquidate 69,000 Bitcoin from Silk Road, and that it was originally came out from DB News. Now, when you look at the court order, even though this news came out in crypto yesterday, actually this has been in the market since about the 30th of December. In fact, not about the 30th of December. It was ordered on the 30th of December 2024, which means it's actually been in the market for about 10 days. And only yesterday did crypto Twitter actually decide to make a splash out of it. The real traders, the real smart money, actually traded out of this in the process somewhere around here. But it seems like this is a FUD that's been in the market for about 10 days, and only yesterday hit the crypto market. And so the real money has traded out of this already, while the retail money is getting spooked now to actually sell their thing. And in fact, if you look at it a little bit deeper, what you'll realize is that actually this has been in the market for a long time. Not only, I mean, Joe says that the $6.5 billion in Silk Road Bitcoin has been a known in the market for months. It's actually not news. And when I dug into that, what I realized was it isn't news. It's actually, here's an article from July 2025, which says that on July 12, 2024, there was a motion around this actually put into the courts. And we can actually see that the last time when the US sold, which was in 2023, they actually said that they were going to sell further Bitcoin at the time. And when I look at this order over here, this is the order, you can kind of see that this order was actually signed on the 30th of December 2024. So there's nothing new there's nothing new about this. This has actually been in the process for a long time. And it's not some kind of goodbye parting gift from the Democrats, so it's not anything malicious. It's just the ordinary course of business. Now, when I say the ordinary course of business, the US government often seizes assets as part of criminal cases, right? And then what they do is they actually land up going through a process. And the process is that the DOJ seizes the asset, then the DOJ applies to a court for forfeiture of the asset. The court reviews. If the court says no, the assets are returned to the holder. If the court says yes, then a forfeiture order is issued. Now, when that happens, US Marshal Services take custody of the asset. And then they go to the court again, and they go and apply to liquidate these assets. And once the court gives an order, they then have to go and liquidate the assets. So Adam Cochran actually breaks it up. He says, he doesn't say it so now. He says, since dummies seem to think this is a political quick reminder that the DOJ is required to sell any cleared assets to cash and transfer that cash to the treasury once sold. Clearance requirements are based on time, legal case outcomes, expiry of any claims, review by a judge, and are managed by career employees, not by political appointees. To change that requirement, Congress, with a majority vote in both houses, because right now the Treasury cannot hold non-sovereign issued assets. It is within the scope of the presidential authority. It is not within the scope of the presidential authority to change that, nor to direct that. If you want the Treasury to have diverse assets, it must be through congressional act. So what he's saying here is he's saying, look, the DOJ is required to sell these assets because the court has now ruled. And this is completely separate from any Bitcoin strategic reserve. It's two different things. One is there's a government employee who has followed a process which has been followed for the last 6 months or maybe 1 year to sell these assets. Once the court realized that it was safe to sell these assets and that the US government wouldn't have any claims against these assets, they are now safe to sell these assets, and they will sell the assets, and that's pretty much all that's going to happen. So now let's look at what impact this can have on the market. So first of all, we need to understand how quickly these assets are going to be sold, or whether they've already been sold already. They have not been sold. Even though I saw this tweet from 𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧 that said that the assets have already been sold, the truth is that if you go to the wallet and you look at the wallet, you can see that the Bitcoin are very much in the wallet. $6.4 billion worth of Bitcoin now sitting square in the wallet. That is alongside another wallet which has $18 billion worth of US government Bitcoin. And together, those two wallets make up 100% of the Bitcoin reserves that Trump was actually speaking about, right? And so they have the Bitcoin November 2020. They have the Bitcoin Silk Road seizure. That's the 69,000 Bitcoin. They have the Bitfinex hack, which is coins that were hacked from Bitfinex, 94,000 Bitcoin. And then there's the James Zong seizure, which is 51,000 Bitcoin. And that makes up the wallets that the United States government actually owns. And so what we've got to try and understand is, when are these tokens actually going to hit the market? Because if we know when the tokens are going to hit the market, then we know when the prices are going to come down. You'll remember that Germany also sold a whole lot of tokens into the market. And when they did that, when they completed their sale, I think I've got a chart somewhere here. So when they completed their sale, we actually bottomed, right? Remember, Germany was pushing down the market and pushing down the market and pushing down the market. And then when they completed it, the market kind of went up, and then we continued to rally, right? And so we should try and ascertain when and how long it's going to take for the US government to actually sell their Bitcoin. If I look on Polymarkets has only a 26% chance that they're going to be sold before the inauguration. So I also don't think, to be honest, I don't think Trump's going to hear this on the news or find out that this has actually happened and then think, wow, this is the thing that's most important on my agenda, is to make sure that the Department of Justice doesn't sell these Bitcoin. I don't think that's going to happen. I do, however, think that once he comes into power, he can stop them from selling it. I also think that if they do sell it before he comes into power, there's no mechanism for the US to actually buy back Bitcoin, right? Because right now, if you think about it, the US has zero mechanism to buy Bitcoin. They don't have the right acts passed to make it a strategic reserve. And so there's no reason for the US to buy Bitcoin. So what we can say is that there's two outcomes here. One is they don't sell it before the inauguration, or a few outcomes. One is they don't sell it before the inauguration, in which case Trump can intercept it. And then he may or may not even be aware of this. And when I say be aware of it, I think even though for us this is the most important thing today, for Trump, I think this is 1 in a million things. He's dealing with the Hamas terrorists. He's dealing with Ukraine. He's dealing with Iran. He's dealing with the inauguration. I won't say the last thing on his mind, but I don't think first and foremost on his mind is the Silk Road Bitcoin that the Department of Justice is about to sell, right? If they do sell it before the inauguration, then unfortunately we're going to have a lot of selling pressure on the market. And if we do get a lot of selling pressure on the market, I don't see a mechanism for the US to actually start buying this back right now. However, let's quickly look at a couple more facts. The first thing is, when we look at the timeline, the previous time that they sold, they got the approval for sale on the 15th of January 2014, and they only landed up selling it 6 months later in a auction where, and this is how Tim Draper actually got all his Bitcoin, he bought them in a government auction. So here, the approval happened in January, but they only sold them in June, right? I think that there was another example over here, 2013, 2014. Was there another example, Andre? You were supposed to give me another example.
No. There is no other example,
Unfortunately not today. Okay, so what you can see is that they don't necessarily sell immediately after that. It can take them up to 6 months to actually sell this. So from that point of view, we actually could be quite safe. We actually could be pretty safe. In other words, number one, they may sell it slowly, responsibly, and OTC, like they did with the Kim Draper Bitcoin. They may sell them on the open market, like they did with the previous batch of Bitcoin. So the previous batch of Bitcoin, if I remember correctly, I think here it is. Okay, I don't have the chart. Here it is. They sold those the previous batch of Bitcoin on the open market. So they can sell them OTC. They can sell them on the open market. The question is how much pressure they've actually got to do it in. Now, here is why I am not worried, right? Here is why I'm not worried. And also why I think that at some point we're going to get a generational buying opportunity. So let me start off with the fact of why I'm not worried. The first reason why I'm not worried is because this has actually been in the market for at least 10 days already. I mean, the smart money has been watching the court orders, and it's been in the market for at least 10 days already. And that is why I think right now we have a 26% chance of it being sold before the inauguration and not a 90% chance of it being sold before the inauguration. Also, last year, $379 billion entered the market. Now, of that $379 billion, you want to remember that $379 billion came from primarily two big sources. The first big source was the ETFs. And if we go into the ETFs, what we can see is that the ETFs have had some billion-dollar days recently, like $500 million, $1 billion, $1 billion. And so $6 billion is not as much as it used to be before the ETFs and before Saylor started buying. I mean, if you look at Saylor bought 258,000 Bitcoin for $22 billion in 2024. So I think the market can, I won't say pretty easily absorb it, but I think the market will absorb it. Easily. It's not a huge number. It's big, but it's not a massive number like it was before the institutions and before Saylor came in. I also want to remind you of something else. Markets are forward-looking mechanisms. Markets look through news scenarios to the future. That is what a market is. And if you think about this is not a change in the market structure. This is just a short-term opportunity for people to buy Bitcoin. The fact that the US government is selling a couple of Bitcoin that they were initially going to hold doesn't change the market structure, doesn't change the fact that there's inflation, doesn't change the fact that we need a store of value, doesn't change the fact that we've got Bitcoin ETFs, doesn't change the fact that we've got a pro-crypto administration coming in, doesn't change the fact that Gary Gensler's out, doesn't change the fact that Trump's coming in. It's just a short-term anomaly. And because the market structure is not broken, then we can pretty much assume that the market will look right through this and that we may get a short-term buying opportunity. And you'll remember that same short-term buying opportunity happened when Germany sold. When Germany sold early on, they put some short-term pressure on the market, and then it was cleared, and then the market was free to go up because the seller was out the way, and people that landed up buying in this dip landed up making a hell of a lot of money. So now the question is, when is this generational buying opportunity going to come? Well, you know what I think is going to happen? I think you need to keep your eyes on the wallet. So here's the wallet. It's clearly labeled on Arkham. You can go to the Arkham website. And as soon as you see Bitcoin being moved out of this wallet, then the market will panic. And when the market panics, because we know that this is not a structural problem in the market, what do? We buy the fucking dip. It's as simple as that. So you want to make money? Don't buy now. And I'm not going to buy now. I'm going to wait to see if any Bitcoin move out of this wallet. And as soon as the Bitcoin move out of this wallet, this whole market's going to panic. And when the whole market panics, that is when we buy. And the reason why we buy is because we're confident that the market structure isn't changing. This is just a short-term seller, and everything else remains ceteris paribus. Everything else remains exactly the same. And that is exactly why I'm not worried. In fact, not only am I not worried, I'm actually excited. I'm not kidding. I'm actually excited about this opportunity. You know why I am excited about the opportunity? Because I've said to you guys before that what I'm looking for is a change in sentiment in this market. I've spoken to you about my one indicator that hasn't told me that the bottom's in. I keep saying that for me, for a correction, what we need sentiment in this market to change. We need the fear and greed to drop by at least 40 points, which is the same thing that's happened in all bull market corrections. If we go back to 2021, for example, right? You see, we had the bull market and the fear and greed was in the 90s. And then we dropped from 90 to 40. That's a 50-point correction in the fear and greed. And then again, we dropped to probably just below 40. We dropped by 40 or 50 points in the fear and greed. And up until now, to be honest, I haven't seen any real fear in the market, and I haven't seen anybody call for the cycle top until now. And now when I look at my timeline, all I'm seeing is this guy's calling for the end of the cycle, and he's calling for it back down to 30. This guy's calling for no alt season, 99% of alts under 2021 highs, no all-time high for ETH. Inflation returns higher than expected. Fed pausing rate cuts. Bitcoin corrects due to ETF outflows. No one is ready for this. This guy's calling for the top. He says we've hit the top in Solana and now we're going back down to 40, believe it or not. This guy says we've just had a 10 to 14K nuke. Bull market may be over. This guy says this is either the beginning of the bear market and 102 was your top, or a lot of people capitulating here. It depends on your perspective. This is either an opportunity or a warning. Ansem says there's a 75% chance that the market's bottomed, that the market's topped. Evan says there'd be a 20 to 25% chance that the cycle's topped. This guy says, contrary to gold, Bitcoin is now in a bear market. Lark says Bitcoin could be about to complete a bearish head and shoulder pattern and go down. Carl says if Bitcoin breaks a head and shoulder pattern, we could see a huge correction. And he's talking about a massive correction. Henrik says, please understand the implications of a broadening top pattern for Bitcoin. It simply means game over and a major crash to below the blue trend line. And the blue trend line is a long way down. There are a lot of people talking about a correction. For the first time, I'm starting to see that people are capitulating. It makes me so excited. And the reason why it makes me so excited is because I'm looking for a correction in fear and greed. We haven't had a real correction in fear and greed. And it's the one indicator that's been bothering me for a long time. I keep saying, it doesn't feel, I know the price has gone down. I know we've had a 10 and 15% wicks down. But I haven't seen a correction in fear and greed. And for the first time right now, what I'm starting to smell is that people are starting to talk about the end of the bull market, the capitulation, the end of the cycle. And that is everything that I've been looking for to confirm that we are actually getting towards the bottom. Now, where do I think this bottom is actually going to be? To be honest, and I've said it for a long time, I kind of think like around the 80 to 80, between 85, around 85,000 to me seems like a good level for where the bottom's going to be. But the truth is, I'm not looking for the bottom on price. I'm looking for the bottom on sentiment. And I think right now, when you think about sentiment, we have a bit of a problem. And I'll tell you what the problem actually is. If you look at the stock market sentiment, the stock markets are currently at fear. And they've been at fear for quite a long time. You can see a week ago, there was much more fear in the stock market than there is right now, right? At the same time, though, when I look at crypto's still at greed. And so there's a massive disconnect between crypto and the stock markets. And so I started to analyze, why is there a disconnect between the stock markets and the crypto fear and greed? And I came to the conclusion that whilst the stock market has been correcting and people have been panicking, the crypto markets have been held up by MicroStrategy. So MicroStrategy has almost shielded us, because remember, we're in a market where if Bitcoin goes up, the whole market goes up, and if Bitcoin goes down, the whole market goes down. So our desire to speculate on the altcoins comes from the price of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes up, we feel confident, and then we spend money on altcoins. And if Bitcoin goes down, well, then you get a situation that looks like this, where Bitcoin goes down 1 or 2%. And then our favorite altcoins, holy shit, Sonic's down at 62 cents. Beam is down at 22 cents. The altcoins have had a massive correction. Massive correction, okay? So we have kind of been shielded. We've been completely shielded, because whilst the rest of the market has gone down, we've had one unnatural buyer in the market holding the market up. And if, I've always said that for me, if MicroStrategy slows, then that could bring the crypto fear and greed down. If it doesn't, then we may remain insulated. So to summarize, what I'm looking for here is I'm looking for the fear and greed to correct. I don't think that I'm comfortable that a 69% and the fact that we're still sitting in green means the end of the correction. However, I think very quickly, if we take one more leg down, and if we get to around the $85,000 level, and the fear and greed actually does correct, then I actually think that we've probably seen the bottom and we can carry on going up. Now, as it relates to the cycle top, could this be the cycle top? I mean, there is a probability. It can happen. But listen, I've been here for 3 cycles, and I can tell you that, they say if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, or they said like if she looks like a porn star and she talks like a porn star, then yes. So I've been here for 3 cycles, and I can tell you that this is the furthest thing that I've seen from a cycle top. And it's not only me. In fact, you can remember that when Ben Cowan was on the show last year, he literally predicted this exactly.
For at least a few more weeks. My guess is there's going to be some type of a pullback in January or February. But the reason I say January is because you're going to get the inauguration, and then everyone's going to want to ask themselves, all right, do we actually get a strategic Bitcoin reserve, right? Is it all talk, or is it actually going to happen? If it happens, then we should have no problem going higher, right, throughout 2025.
So Ben literally called us on the show, and he said we're going to get some kind of pullback in January. And in fact, he's not the only one that called it. If you go back to the charts, every bull market begins with a rough start. For the past 2 cycles, they've been rising the first few weeks. This is exactly what happens every single January. And the only difference is that in every single other January, when the markets go down 30% or 20%, everyone goes, oh my God, this is the end of the bull market. And then the market shakes you out. I've been looking for this end of the bull market sentiment for a long time. And now we're finally getting it. It makes me absolutely excited that we're finally getting it, and we can get this correction over, and we can actually move on, and we can continue with the rest of the bull market. Also, generally, bull market tops, and it's not always, but bull market tops actually have certain things in common. You'll remember when we met with Ben last year, he broke it down very, very scientifically, as he does.
What you said, right? Sometime between April and November. That seems to make the most amount of sense. The only thing I would say is if you look at the 2-week RSI, in 2013, we sort of had an early top.
When he came on the show, he actually gave us a whole lot of indicators, and I combined these with a whole lot of other indicators. So I actually want to go through some of the indicators with you guys. One of them is this pi cycle top. This is an indicator called the pi cycle top. Now, what you'll realize about the pi cycle top is that usually the pi cycle top happens when you go when the market tops above the pi cycle top. That happened in both 2017 and that happened in 2021, right? And you can see it over here, right? So that's the 2014, that's the 2017, that is the 2021. You can see Bitcoin broke above the pi cycle top. Well, we haven't actually broken above this pi cycle top yet. And so that kind of says that probably this is not the end of the bull market. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of others. We'll drop a link to this document that you can look at. But if you look at, for example, the monthly RSIs. Okay, so this is the 1 month RSIs. This 1 month RSI also hasn't topped, right? So you look at the 1 month RSI, hasn't topped. If we look at the social risk indicator, which you can look at here. Okay, so you look at the Bitcoin historical risk levels, you can see that we're nowhere near the historical risk levels that actually mark the top. In fact, we look pretty much like we look normally on the cycle, right? If you look at how crypto is relative to its trend line, so let me just see if we can find that one, or if we need to open it. Let's open it here quickly. Okay, that's a good one. So let's look at valuation versus trend line. Like generally when we top, the valuation versus the trend lines separate. And you can see that right now we are actually exactly on the trend line of Bitcoin valuation. So there's another cycle indicator that's telling you we're nowhere near the cycle top. Let's look at historical risk levels when it comes to Bitcoin. So, okay, we've looked at that. Let's look at the Bitcoin color-coded risk levels. Like generally, the Bitcoin top happens when the market is so heated that we get to very, very, very high risk levels. We're nowhere near there. In fact, we're still in yellow and maybe even now moving back down to blue. There's a whole lot of others. I think one to look at is probably the YouTube views. You know that we are nowhere near YouTube view highs. Retail hasn't come here. There hasn't really been froth in the market. I mean, just look at what previous highs looked like, and look at where we actually are today. I mean, here you can see this. You can see this one here. Let's just quickly go to this one over here. I think we've actually looked at that one. So yeah, we've looked at the risk levels. In terms of retail sentiment, one thing we also know is that Bitcoin usually tops when the Coinbase app goes to number 1. We haven't been at number 1. We haven't even been anywhere near number 1. The closest we've been is on number 10. And actually right now, if you look at where the Coinbase app is on the App Store, it is currently, it's currently at like 171. So I've seen cycle tops before. And of course, there are many different cycles, and every cycle may actually be different. But this doesn't feel or smell or look like a cycle top. Another thing which you may want to look at is this. If you look at the RSIs, of total 3, so I think this guy's looking at it on a 4-hour. Let's quickly open the others. Let's quickly. Is it others or is he looking? He's looking at total 3. Let's look. We could look at it on many others, but let's look at total 3, and let's look at the RSIs. Let's put in an RSI. Okay, and I mean, he's looking at 4-hour, we're looking at daily, but if you look at the 4-hour, it's probably much lower. On the 4-hour, the total 3 is pretty much bottomed or bottoming at the moment. And so for me, when I look at this, all I'm seeing opportunity. Now, do I press the trigger now? Probably not. And the reason is, I think that there's going to be one more scare in the market. And what is that scare going to be? It's going to be if any tokens move out of this wallet. So your job for today is to keep looking at this wallet. When you see the Bitcoin moving out, as soon as that happens, the market's going to start panicking. When that happens, that is when you press the button and you actually land up buying. Now, my suggestion is, if you're going to buy, open an account on Bitget, Bitget, because I said I am going to put. Now, my suggestion is, if you're going to 10,000 people, I'm going to put $10,000 on anyone's account to open an account from yesterday. So go and do that. Yeah, but I think start making a buy list, because I think pretty much we're not going to buy anything today just because this news did come out yesterday. And, you know, when you get new news in the market, you kind of want to adjust your strategy on the new news. And for me, the new news is that I kind of know that there's going to be some kind of selling activity from this US government, or maybe. And I want to have money, I want to have dry powder when that actually starts happening. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I think and why I'm excited. And I do think we're going to get a generational buying opportunity if it happens, because just think about this. After this whole thing happens, Trump comes into power. Now, do you think that Trump's going to just sit down and watch the markets collapse? And also, in fact, if you think about where Trump is coming into power, I just want to show you something. This is probably a good tweet. He said, we seem to have forgotten that we have a president that will be mentioning Bitcoin regularly. MicroStrategy is in the NASDAQ. The Fed is in a position that they have 4 or 5% of interest rates to actually crash. You've got 3 to 5% inflation, and Bitcoin is also an inflation hedge. More importantly, you've got a strong dollar, a strong Dixie. Now, when you have a strong Dixie, Trump knows that he has to get the Dixie down to make the US competitive. We spoke about this yesterday. A Dixie going down means that risk assets are going to reprice, which is going to be good. The credit cycle hasn't even started yet. Many countries like China are still stimulating. And now you want to be selling? I guess there's only one argument if you want to be selling now. And that argument is that if you think that the whole Trump presidency is a buy the rumor, sell the news. In other words, when I say that, let's quickly go back. Let's go look at the SP 500 chart and then say the following. If we'll look at the 5th of November. So let's go back to the 5th of November. Let me just get out of the 4-hour chart. Okay, so 5th of November. There. If you think that the entire Trump win was a buy the rumor, sell the news, in other words, since Trump won the election, the S&P went up 6%. And so what you can say is, you can say, look, this whole thing around Trump was 6% up on the markets, and now Trump actually has to deliver what he promised us. Maybe you're right, but I don't think so. I think that this is just a normal correction. I think it happens every single January. I think it always presents amazing, amazing buying opportunities, and we always kick ourselves that we never actually landed up buying. And in fact, you know what? If SUI is cheap enough, because I know that it's a multi-cycle token, and because I know that it's going to, let's just quickly see, where is SUI? Sorry, my bubbles have epilepsy, as you can see. There we go, there's SUI. See, SUI's not even down. You see, that's the problem. 463. Again, I said if it goes under 450, but it looks like I missed it over there, then I'd probably actually land up start buying. So all in all, guys, we're not worried. We're not worried. If you are looking at AI agents, and I said I'd bring you guys a new AI agent platform every single day. The one that I looked at today is AI Pump. So AI Pump is a launch pad. It's one of those launch pads. It has a market cap of $12.9 million. The thing about this launchpad of AI agents is it actually makes it very easy to program your agent. So you can mess around with it, go and mess around with it. You can go and launch, show you what it looks like. Very, very, very quick to actually launch tokens. Similar to virtual, similar to AI.fun. Okay, so if I want to create a new agent, I just click here and it becomes really, really easy. And you can very, very easily program the personality by just creating commas and commas and commas of descriptors. So that's one that I am looking at today. It's one that I am looking out for today. Market cap $12.9 million. Wait for me to come back to you tomorrow to tell you whether or not I'm going to do some research. I'm going to launch a couple of agents, and then I'll tell you whether or not we should actually be looking at it. Otherwise, if you want to have some fun, so there is a game called it's by a company called Fantico, and I think it's called F1 by Fantico, or it's a racing game. Now, if you guys want to play a tournament, the Big Banter Showdown with us, you can win. It's a great game. It's like a driving game. There's a link below which allows you to drive in our competition. Here we go. It's called Fantico, and so you join here. And you can drive in the competition. It's a closed competition, and you can win up to $15,000. So you can do that on the link below. Otherwise, I will see you guys again tomorrow. Hopefully, well, tomorrow the US markets will be open, and hopefully we'll get some calm in the markets. In fact, no, the truth is, hopefully I just want this thing to come down. Let it come down. Let this correction be over. Let the fear and greed correct, and let's move on with the bull cycle. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.